So this is primarily a reptile channel, but I'm a lover of all animals, nature, science, so there's going to be a lot of overlap in other subject areas that's not explicitly reptile related. And even though we humans are more closely related to reptiles than reptiles are to amphibians, today we're going to be talking about amphibians a little bit. So this topic is a little heavy, so at the end of this video you will be rewarded with a little clip of my pixie frog failing at being a frog. The derpiness is 10 out of 10. Since the 80s, over 90 different species of amphibian have gone extinct, and over 500 species of amphibian have declined in numbers due to the Batrachochytrium dendrobatidis fungus. And there's a non-zero chance that I said that all kinds of wrong. This fungus causes a deadly disease that has devastated amphibian populations worldwide, especially in Central and South America. And shortly after the devastation to some of these amphibian species, scientists marked a significant increase in malaria cases in some of those areas. There was some research published by UC Davis that looks at malaria in relation to the mass dying of some of these amphibian species, since malaria is largely spread by mosquitoes, which is a primary food source for some of these amphibians. A major concern of scientists worldwide is that increases in these fungal infections in a lot of amphibian populations can lead to mass extinctions of amphibians, which can have a significant increase in the amount of mosquitoes, and ultimately diseases that are commonly spread by mosquitoes, like malaria. Although I wasn't able to find any direct causation of this fungal spread from the actions of humans, it's undeniable that our actions do cause harm to the environment for many different species. This is an example of ecosystems breaking down, not excluding humans as organisms that can be harmed as a result of those breakdowns. We're starting to see trends of our actions having adverse impacts to environments, and then those adverse impacts having dire consequences for us. I really hope that frogs and other amphibians are able to have some sort of a defense to this fungal outbreak, because it would be devastating to lose such a huge and diverse group of animals like that. When it comes to extinctions because of environmental issues, not poaching or collection from the wild, but specifically environmental issues, we see that there's a huge benefit to captively keeping some of these species. Corporate conservation through corporate breeding, whether for the pet trade, for science and research, whatever, can help to preserve some of these species if their wild populations ultimately are suffering too much because of environmental harm. There is a current example of this in the axolotl, where their native area, where they live in Mexico, it has been devastated, and the wild population of that species is close to extinction. However, the species survives very prevalently through the pet trade primarily. And I hope that we don't have to rely on functions like that for many other species, but the sad reality is that it increasingly looks like that's the case for many. The important piece of this, and this is what I'm emphasizing, is we're talking about captive breeding here. We're not talking about wild collection of animals or poaching or anything like that. We're talking about captive breeding animals to be able to increase the population of those animals so that hopefully one day the environment gets cleaned up in a way that they can be reintroduced, but even if not, we at least haven't lost them completely to the actions of humans. Also, for amphibian pet keepers, make sure when caring for your own amphibians that you wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water, and make sure that you get all the soap off your hands before conducting any kind of maintenance in their enclosure. If you handle them at all, make sure that you use gloves, make sure that you are using clean and treated water for their water dishes for them to drink and soak in. Make sure that you clean their enclosures regularly, and that the feeders that you provide to them are quality feeders from captive sources, not wild caught feeders that could have parasites and ultimately could be contaminated with this fungus that causes this infection. Ultimately, if this infection does get into your animal, it can be deadly for them, and it can spread throughout your collection if you keep more than one. All in all, I want to bring relevant current herpetological and scientific news to you, and I try to find the good stuff when I'm searching for some of these articles, but that's not always what I find, and sometimes there's something like this that comes out that's important and needs to be said, awareness needs to be brought to it, and it just kind of sucks that it's a downer sometimes. So if you found this video helpful, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. And as promised, here's a video of Bubbles in his valiant efforts of eating discoid roaches with probably about a 90% fail rate. See you next week. A lot of these